Hello, this is Max Drake. I want to talk about the PowerKey4Revit, the return on investment calculator through here. So these are the power keys that I actually have set up for the moment. Some of them, like the L space or the G space or the W space or the R space, is just a different shortcut key. So you're going to get no efficiencies at all off those. They're just going to take exactly the same time. But we have this spreadsheet through here of which we want to start putting in some data. So let's just find some data first to be able to put into here. So what we're going to use as a demonstration, this first one here, is just to use the region command through. So we're going to run the region command and see how long it takes us to do. So I'm going to go type Alt S, and because I'm active over here, I've got to then do a click into the Revit screen so that that's active. Then I can actually run the keyboard shortcuts through there. So I'll go Alt F, start the timer, click on that and type R4. This brings me into this one here. I zoom into here. I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, close, OK, Alt W. So that's taken me about 16.5 seconds to do. So let's just delete that out of there. We'll zoom back in, delete, so that we've got the whole item on the screen. The next one we're going to do is doing exactly the same thing using the region command. So we're just going to clear that, start, and go Alt S, click on that R4, which brings us into that. We're now going to select region, come down here, select 1 point, 2 points, go OK and Alt W. So that's taken us about 9.96 seconds. So we just say 10 just as a rounding point of thing through there. So we go R through there. Now we're just going to zoom back out here again. And for the third one here, we're going to go Alt S, G spacebar, zoom in, too far, 1, 2, Alt W, and that's taken us about 8.3. Now I must admit, I've done this video about 6 or 7 times, so I'm getting faster at the other ones, a hell of a lot faster. So let's just put that information in there at the moment. So of the two that we've got the original times to do it, I'm just going to put these numbers through here. So one was 16.5 and then the second one was in fact 10. So if we go through there, so what we can actually say is that was done in 10 and the other one was done in 8.3. So let's just say 8.5. So if that's the way that we're doing it, we've saved ourselves 1.5 seconds every time we hit that command. Now we could also say, well, if we look at the number of people, like there's a group of 4 of you in there or something, and somebody else uses the line command whereas you use the region command, we could actually just say, well, this is equal to open brackets 16.5 plus 10 divided by 2, we'll say. So we can actually say, well, the average time is 13.25 seconds. So we're saving about 4.75 seconds every time we use it. But let's just go back to the 10 because that's what we got through there. So we now know how many seconds that we're actually saving on using that command, if we are. So the next part I want to look at here is to look at the hourly rate. So the hourly rate is what they're paying you to actually do your do your job. So that's the hourly rate. So it could be a salary just divided by the number of days you're actually working, and then divided by the hours in the day, and then we can actually get that the rate of how much your rate in every second. So we actually take the hourly rate and we divide the rate divided by 3,600. So that's 50 divided by 60 minutes in an hour divided by 60 seconds in a minute. So that comes out of that. So we can now multiply that. So every time we do that, we can actually say, well, we're saving 1.5 times that. So we're saving 0.02 cents every time we use that fast key at this point in time. But how many times do we use it in a day? Well, when I set up the program, one of the things that I did inside here, every time you use any one of these commands, there is a inside the power keys, which is stored in your documents directory, there's a little file here called Frequency.ini. Now, if we click on that file there, you'll see that it tells you how many times you've done that command. So what we can actually do here is that I can actually just take that and go copy, Control V, and now I can go into the original file. I can blow it all away, and I can put a today's date on there. We just put today because we're being silly. And then when I actually come back into Revit, and we'll try something like T spacebar and come into here and just write a bit of text, and we just write T spacebar through there. When we come back into our new ini file and close that down, and sorry, I've got to come back into there and go into our Frequency.ini file, you'll see that the T spacebar, it's now rewritten it again. So the T space is done. So every time I use it from now, any keys that I use, it's going to record the number of times that it does it. So that's really handy. So what we can actually say is, well, actually that G space one, we've done that 18 times, and we've done that in a week because we've had that loaded in a week. Now, I could have done it for a few tests, so I wasn't using it properly. So this is where I'd say, blow away your ini file or all of this data inside your ini file after a week or 2 weeks, and then see how many times you use it so that you can get a realistic time of how many times you do this, because you want to be fair with yourself and with others when you're playing with your data. You want to be accurate. So what we've actually said is inside a week we've done it 18 times divided by 5. So we've done it 3.6 times a day is had the frequency of use. So when we look at this there, to do it manually, we multiply the 10 by the 3.6 times our second, the rate per second, and we ended up costing us 50 cents a day by doing it. And when we do it with the automated one, so we're saving 0.08 cents, so about 10 cents a day. So what we're doing, so if we multiply that by a week, so it's 5 times our daily rate, so that's 2.5, and a month is 4 times our weekly rate, so that's $10 a month. And then if we multiply that by 12, the number of times we use it in a year, we're saving ourselves $18 a year just on that one command. So we can start looking at some of the things which are going to give us some efficiencies through here. And what we can actually see is, although it's only saved 1.5 seconds, when you look at the frequency of when you do it. Now, one that I talk of here is using the text notes one. So let's just go and do a demonstration of that one. So I'm going to use M1 text notes. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to use the structural one through there and go apply and go click on that to there. And there's our note through there. Now, how long would it actually take you to type that and put the arrow onto the thing that you actually wanted? Because we've actually got a lot of it pre-built. A lot of the times we might not have that note. We might have part of that note through there and do it. And there's methods of doing with stuff with text in another efficient way. So that we can most probably save quite a lot of time on. Now, I don't really want to go through that. That's something which you can measure. But what is interesting with that, if we go back to the original frequency ones and look at NN, I'm using it 61 times a day there, N3, N3, N2, N1, 12. So 12 plus 6 is 18, 21 plus 60, so that's 80 times. So the point is that if we come into that spreadsheet there, for the NN ones, we've used it equal to 80, divided by 5, so we're using it 16 times a day. So that means because we're using notes a lot and a lot and a lot, and maybe it is because we got to go and pull the text box or something like that. It is maybe saying this is the sort of stuff that suddenly you get quite dramatic saving. Like in the course of a year, it's costing you $2,000 to type the notes, and automation, you're actually saving half your time. So you're making a saving of $1,000 a year on that. Now that's quite impressive if you're doing that. Now the other one is visibility graphics, and this is one I'm going to demonstrate this one because I want to show how I'm not actually making that much savings on this one here. So the visibility graphics is another one that I want to demonstrate through here. So we're just going to go into the timer, and I'm just going to reset that timer there, and I'm just going to do it here. So I'm just going to go Alt S, click on there, RR1. It's going to come in, automate itself, come down, do it, click on all of that. I've got hands free, nothing's happening through here, and it's done it. Oh, sorry, I was a bit late with that one. Let's just do that one again. Alt R. Alt S, click on that, RR1. It's going through and doing it, and as soon as it's finished, Alt W, it's taking me 9 seconds to do that. Now, if I do it manually, so that's 9 seconds for there. And if I do it, so we reset there, we go Alt S there, visibility graphics. I'm now going to go M, which brings me down to lines. Then I'll come into lines through to there. I'll roll down to there, go room separator there, go OK, go Alt W. That's taking me 12 seconds. So that's basically 3 seconds difference. Now, what I used to do, and it was only after I was trying to build this key up, I would actually go visibility graphics, L. Because the L isn't showing for the one, I'd need to come across here to scroll down to here. I'd then click on lines, then I'd scroll down again through here. And I was doing it in an extremely inefficient way before, and it was only when I started to program that I suddenly realized I could do it quite quickly. Anyway, even for that one there. So if we come back onto our spreadsheets there, one we were doing it in about 9, one we were doing it in about 12 seconds. And so we're actually saving 3 seconds. If we go in and look at our visibility graphic frequency through here, so our VG is the double R. So there's a double R for 3, there's a double R for 2, double R for 1 for 14. So let's just say we've got equals to 14 divided by 5. So I use it approximately 3 times a day. It seems a bit suspicious for that one there. It's most probably for the demos and things like that. You can see that suddenly I'm making about $28 saving over the course of a year. It's not that great, but what I want to demonstrate through here is that all I have to do is type RR1. Mentally, by the end of the day, I don't have to come in and choose lines, come in and find the little dots and press on all of those things. It's all done. All I've got to do is type the fast key. So this is where I find these things, although you're not saving a return on investment from the point of view of you're not sped up that much, mentally you're sped up because you're not as tired of having to do all of those 5 steps or whatever they were compared to just typing it, just remembering a key. So this is another thing I want to highlight. There's some of the things which are tangible, and there's other ones which are intangible. So I find that because I'm working with a workflow that makes me more comfortable, I'm not fighting the Revit. I'm actually getting it to work in the style that I actually like, and I find it makes me a lot more effective. Now, another demonstration of one that I've got on here is one for a detailed note. Now, I actually haven't got these set up there, but I do want to demonstrate them through here just to expose you to the idea through here. So a lot of times I'll be doing some pipe work. So I'd actually have a pipe work note. So I just type a bit of text and it will be DIA 35 millimeter hot water supply to boiler. And I'd then have that note there, and then I'd have A3, and I'd be pointing at some particular pipe. Then I'd actually be going through and go copy, and then I'd be going through and then going through for there, and I'll be going hot water return, and then I've got that one there, and then I'd have to change the arrow position, and then I'd go copy, and then most probably I go copy the unread cold water, and that would be cold water flow, it's cold water supply, back supply. Oh no, I've got that. Let's just doesn't matter. Cold water supply, and then that would be 15 millimeters because it's just top up in the boiler or something like that. And then I'd actually have to take them and point them to each particular pipe. And so that was the old way of doing it. But instead, I can actually just type PP and what service, and I actually want to say we could do hot water here. So I'll demonstrate something else. So hot water supply. and the pipe diameter is going to be, what did we say? I would just say 45. Is there a fall on there? If we did want a fall, I can do that and just do an import box, click on there. There's the note through there. I can click on there and go A1 and point to wherever I need it to point to. So as it is, instead of actually doing that one, I'd actually give it the arrow so that I point from the text. So I'd use the text one segment or text curved instead, so that it would already pre-built in. The other one that I'd have is this one here for LP for the duct one. So instead of, you know, some people might put HW while somebody might put hot water services. In here, I can actually have duct size 340 times 230. 9, and it's a return air duct, and we just, do we have insulation? Yes. If clicked, submit. Where do you want to put your text? We put the text there. It writes that in there for me, already pre-built. I just do A3 through there at this point in time, and then I just give it at that point there. So this, to me, is an easier way of doing it. But you can do that on things which you're doing with a lot of repetition. Now, if you're doing a lot of services work, I'm forever writing this blooming note in with it's just variations on the theme. You have the diameter, you have the pipe thing, you have the system that it's going to, and then maybe a note at the end so you can actually add one. So the last one that I just want to demonstrate on here is one that I'm actually building for architectural, when this one here I think is the 66 is the key for it. So this is the internal lining type, and I'll actually, and this shows you what it's doing. So internal, so we'll say 12 millimeters jib. Again, you can actually have a pull down for the type of lining, so it might be jib, or it might be ply, selected ply, ply veneer, oak veneer, and then the internal is clear polyurethane, gloss, semi-gloss. Framing size is 100 times 50, or insulation thickness in there is going to be maybe 1.3. And has it got a radbull? So rigid air barrier, 7 eco-ply. And vent cavity, yes, 20 millimeters. And the external cladding, we can actually have vertical, horizontal, sinusoidal preview. We'll take the ship left and go OK. We click a point, and that seems to have lasted that way. Whoa! Don't know what's happening there. If we tap it, it seems to have a narrow box through there. And so if we just drag that up to there, there's our note. And we've got all of those items in there. Now again, with that one there, this is where I want to start looking to see if I can get some variables somewhere to do. So this is another thing of you pre-building your notes. And instead of doing this copy paste, copy space, with those ones there, you can actually see that those will actually generally speed up a lot of your notes. Now, you wouldn't use them. You might, at a certain point of your documentation, you might actually be going down and annotating pipes all the time, in which case maybe you're using it 5 times a day, but you won't be using it in preliminary design. But at this point in time, this speeds up the times that you can actually save on these ones. So these ones, I actually call them dynamic notes, so that they aren't currently in my set, but there's something which I've got on the horizon that I should be happening. Now the issue with those is, like another thing with that one there, is if we just do that one again, I can just go insulation. So what was I going to say? 12 millimeters jib, fire line, on a particular way, paint finish, thin, framing size. We won't bother with that. We don't want to do any of this. So I just go OK. I click a point. I don't know why that's doing it like that. I might have too many things fired up at this point in time. So we just drag that out. Oh, now it's come through here. You see another thing. So this is where I've got that. So it's I was just giving the size, but then I actually talk about the framing and the maximum size of that. So this is where I actually haven't got this set up to the point where, like the PP one here, you've got a radio button if you want to add a certain item in. Now, what I want to do with the that one there is to actually have a radio button. Well, I've got a couple of radio buttons, so you can choose whether you want them or not. And if you do, then it adds them in. If you don't, then it doesn't. So it's pre-formatted. But for things like the framing size, you can put a dot there. Do you want to add that in? So what it means is that you can use this same note just for doing one part of the note. You don't have to do the whole descriptions. You can just use it for only one part of the overall thing. So you just might want to put the internal linings or something like that. Or else you can build the whole note up and just have it in one place and then highlight the element that you're going to. So it's something that I've got in development, but I think it's something that will really speed up a lot of standard notes that you'll be putting in, especially when you come to detailing. When you're coming into doing your details on your section details all the way through on a project where you've got timber stuff, you're repeating an awful lot of the same things over and over and again, and a lot of them are maybe just variations on the same theme. Like one area you've cut through and it's actually got a jib lining or a plasterboard lining in another area of that. And the fact is that you can come down and on this one here, it didn't seem to come through. But let's just do, if I can do that again, and that was a 6.6. And we're just going to choose that one and go OK. And this is going to go crazy again. Oh, there we are. But you see here it's got, maybe there's an office that you usually use certain weatherboards, vertical ones and horizontal ones and things like that, but you actually have a standard note that you're using with a button and information on how you use it, such that you're dropping in. You've only got 4 or 5 selections. Maybe you're going to be using cement fibrous sheet on the outside, or you're actually using Lucabond panels or something like that, or whatever the flavour of the year with something, that you can end up with a lot of those pre-descriptors that you can just set up and just drop them in. So this is something where it's sort of a hierarchical thing. Now, sorry, the other thing that I just wanted to draw your attention to with that was when you're doing these ones, you actually have to build this whole GUI up from scratch. So one of the things that was very important to me was to actually say, to show the note and show which bits that you're actually adding in there. So it's saying what it's expecting. And then there's a sort of a maybe this and a maybe that, and then the external cladding that you can come down and choose whichever one you want. But as I said, you can put radio buttons on a lot of these just to use it on the standard. So it just means you can just remember the same note that's going to be popping through and just be blasting that one through all the time. So this is something that I do want to develop, but building up these GUIs takes a little bit of time. So I'd rather make them as generic as possible. So this is one for timber framing, and maybe I need to do one for bricks, brickwork, which is European things where they use a lot of bricks, and so those sorts of things. So it's almost like, what notes do people want that I can start developing these sorts of GUIs to make them happening. And a lot of it is that it's basically a lot of that's hidden in the back. Is easy. It's just, maybe there's only 7 elements that you want, and each of these needs a radio button on, so that you can choose which ones to use and which ones you don't use. But what it means is you can pre-format those straight away. So just bringing in the same note and using it over and over and over again, and especially with things like piping, and if you've got conduits or things like that, or specific outlets. And the same with duct sides. A lot of the times you're talking with the duct and you're saying the duct side is this, is it got insulation, is it internal insulation, external insulation, and which system does it belong to? and then is it a flexible duct, or is it a round duct, or is it a rigid duct? So you can actually just have a lot of those pull down ones. Now I think a lot of those, because of the fact that you're modifying it each time, so you basically got the same standard stuff in, that you could come into here and just suddenly saying, oh, I'll just use the same note and copy and paste it and copy and paste it. But this is the way of sort of speeding up that you don't need to have to bother with that copy and paste. So when you come to the annotation of all your ducts, you can just blast through and use the same note, LP, to come through, put your size, put your things, put your insulation through there. And the thing with that duct size, is it rigid duct or is it flexible duct? And so and we can give things. So this is another thing as well, is that you start getting consistencies with the system descriptors that you're actually using all the time. So that sort of thing could be loaded into an ini file and called in. And again, I've got these with no arrow on them, and really I should actually have one which will have a curved arrow, or one, and in fact you could actually have that on the box, so that in fact if you're somebody who has that, you can actually say no arrow, one segment, two segment, or three segments. So you could actually choose which of the setups that you want. So you're using one GUI, this is a graphic user interface, to actually do all of your notes, and depending on your preference, and you can preset it possibly to a specific theme. So these sorts of things can actually give you some quite good ROIs based on what you're doing. So that one I haven't developed, but the idea was there inside. So part of the things that I've got through here is that there's the app that I'm actually building so that people can do the app, but I also have an Udemy course which allows you to build these, to actually build them all yourself. So instead of using my app, I started to do the Udemy course, and then suddenly thought, well, a lot of people won't be interested in actually getting into the whole nitty-gritty of actually doing the programming and stuff. All they want is a little app to actually use. So this is the aspect of what I'm doing now. And then the last thing is actually doing the ROI calculator, so that you can justify to yourself that this thing is worth your while. Now, again, on this one here, let's just say we go from 40 to 20. So we're 20 seconds on here. Basically, I've just set this up for 4 different ones. So I've set it up for regions, I've set it up for text notes, and I've set it up for detail notes, and I've set it up for those. Those are the main hits which are coming through and doing things. And we've sort of gone through and accurately tested these out. Now, as I said, I don't think I mentioned it this time now. One of the things you can do in here is that you can use something like Loom, or you can use a screen recorder, and you just go through and do all 3 exercises on something like the region, and then you just look at your start and end times of each particular one. So you can use Loom, so that's an online thing that will do a screen recorder, and you can actually just go through each of the exercises and just look and see how long each of them actually take you. And you can get other people to do it in Loom as well, so with each person you can see what their speeds are and their efficiencies are. And with a bit of text, you can actually just take a reasonable length of text for that. So with the N1, where you're doing a text one, select a piece of text that you're using, not too long, not too short. So be fair about it, such that you can get a credible estimate of productivity. And the nice thing with Loom is that you can actually, or doing a screen recorder, is you can keep that as backup information of proof of how long the efficiencies that you're actually getting. So this is something that you can then put, and right at the very end we can actually say, well, look, this is how much it saved us for each one of these, for day, for week, and in a month. And you can start seeing that suddenly by month, we've suddenly started to do about 50% savings. And by the end of the year, look, we're going from 3,000 to just over 1,500. So not quite 50%, but you're saving thousands of dollars. And that's just on one person using them. And that's just 4 commands. Now, those happen to be some of the most productive or the ones that actually speed up the most. But coming back to here, what some of these tools do, if you're pulling in notes from a standard file, you can do improved compliance. So what that means is you're using the same notes, and they know that you're pulling the notes from the same place, so they don't need to check those notes. Whereas if you're everybody's writing the notes specifically, you've got to, when you're checking, you've got to spend a lot more time checking those notes, where if they're just using the ones, they're checking at the end, and then the back editing suddenly becomes a lot quicker. And with the enhanced accuracy, because you're actually using the notes and they're pre-typed already, you're not mistyping. And that's one of the issues that I have as I'm getting older. I'm mistyping and actually spending an awful lot of time. And even though I do notice when my documentation goes out, I'm a bit embarrassed because I've got a few things there which I've misspelled. And I don't tend to use the spell checker inside Revit. But again, quicker checking and back editing. And then the other one is that you can check. This is the hard verifiable. These ones aren't as more subjective. And does your documentation get through? And this is one of the things. If you're going to the local council and submitting your documentation, if your company has a reputation for actually giving good quality documentation, you find that it actually goes through a lot more steadier. If you're sort of rough and ready, you find people tend to be a bit more thorough about it, whereas if they know that your documentation has a lot of the information through there, people are a lot more confident with it. So this is one of the things where you're coming through. Now, this is where you're getting your big wins. We can actually see how much savings we're actually making through here. And if you're on a fixed fee, so if you're saying, like, we're going to design residential 3-bedroom or 250 square metre or whatever in square foot residential building on a flat side or this, that and the other, we have a fixed fee of this. If you're actually saving by being more productive doing all of these, it's costing your overheads less, so that means you end up raising your profits. So if you can actually prove some of these things through here, you can go to your boss and you can say, well, I'm actually saving you money because you're making more profits because we're doing it less. That's a good argument for actually saying increase my remuneration because I'm actually saving you money and making you more profitable. So let's split it. You give some to me and stuff. So by increasing the company's profitability, that comes through. The other one I just want to draw your attention to here is if you're charging the client an hourly rate and you're suddenly doing it quicker, you've got to be a little bit careful here because what happens then is that you're giving the client something for less money because you've done it quicker. So what you really need to do is to suddenly saying, well, look, by doing these keys and stuff like that, and on average I'm doing that, I'm actually saving us an hour. So I'm now going to use that extra hour just to review my design concept. So instead of suddenly saying, oh, well, one of the areas where I can see is a wear or something like that. So instead of actually, you've saved on the production side of things such that you can actually go back and reflect, or even at the beginning, spend a bit more time on a better design. So the client still wins. He gets a better quality, but if you get charged in the same number of hours for doing the work, although you drew it in a quicker time, the actual design time, you can go back and just do a review on that and see that you're happy with the quality that you're giving them. And because you're giving them an increased quality, so suddenly saying, oh, well, look, they're going to have a maintenance issue with something like that. So instead of actually just having a standard flashing through there, we're going to go to a stainless steel flashing. Therefore, in 10 years' time, they're not going to have to go up and go and paint those sorts of things. And this is an area where I have a great admiration for something like McDonald's over Kentucky Fried Chicken. The McDonald's puts in quality products, and you don't see them closing down and actually refurbishing very often. Whereas Kentucky Fried Chicken, they're doing a complete revamp every few years because they're using really cheap quality products. So therefore, they've got a much bigger overhead for maintenance and things like that. So if you've got buildings which are more durable, they last, they're less disruption from maintenance and all these sorts of things, or reactive maintenance and those sorts of things, then to a certain extent you will be a preferred designer, because your product lasts better for the same cost of what it is costing the client. So in the ROI one through here, if you actually just go and add to cart, you will actually download this Excel file. As I said before, if you just go into your documents and PowerKey4Revit, where you've got your download, you will find your Frequency.ini file. So this is something of which you can actually prove how frequently. So it's how many times you hit those keys. Now, obviously, at the beginning, you're learning, so throw away your first week's work, put a time of when you started it and put a time when you do it, and you actually have data on the efficiencies that you're doing, and you've measured how long you're taking to do each of those ones. But as I said, some of these keys, these first ones through here, the door, the window, all of those ones, they're going to take exactly the same time as what you were doing originally. It's just, it's a different style that I particularly like, so you may not use some of those. But for the text, where you're actually going up and getting the text each time and doing it, because it's setting up the T1, T2, T3 and all of those, you might find you might have to put that in combination with something else. So you might have to say, I'm writing a specific piece of text, or I'm cutting and pasting a piece of text in, so that you can see if you do it, or whether you're going up to the ribbon and actually doing it and finding it can be something. The other one is symbols. Symbols, I do find, they do doing it this way saves me a bit of time. And the fact that I'm actually just typing diameter as if I was actually typing the symbol, it makes a lot of sense to me. So even then I'm typing three things, and if you're using the Alt plus keyboard, Alt plus 0216 or something, it may probably be the same speed, but it's just a better mental flow in my opinion. Anyway, thank you very much for watching that. I hope this is of some use to you, and I hope that by doing it, if you think that the cost of this add-in is beyond you don't think it's worth it, you can prove to yourself that it is worth it. Anyway, thank you very much for watching.